The Prairie Traveler, a handbook for overland expeditions. Chapter 1. Routes to California and Oregon. Emigrants or others desiring to make the overland journey to the Pacific should bear in mind that there are several different routes which may be traveled with wagons, each having its advocates in persons directly or indirectly interested in attracting the tide of emigration and travel over them. Information concerning these routes coming from strangers living or owning property near them, from agents of steamboats or railways, or from other persons connected with transportation companies, should be received with great caution, and never without corroborating evidence from disinterested sources. There is no doubt that each one of these roads has its advantages and disadvantages, but a judicious selection must depend chiefly upon the following considerations, namely, the locality from whence the individual is to take his departure, the season of the year when he desires to commence his journey, the character of his means of transportation, and the point upon the Pacific coast that he wishes to reach. Persons living in the northeastern states can, with about equal facility and dispatch, reach the eastern terminus of any one of the routes they may select by means of public transport. And, as animals are much cheaper upon the frontier than in the eastern states, they should purchase their teams at or near the point where the overland journey is to commence. Those living in the northwestern states, having their own teams, and wishing to go to any point north of San Francisco, will of course make choice of the route which takes its departure from the Missouri River. Those who live in the middle western states, having their own means of transportation and going to any point upon the Pacific coast, should take one of the middle routes. Others, who reside in the extreme southwest and whose destination is south of San Francisco, should travel the southern road running through Texas, which is the only one practicable for comfortable winter travel. The grass upon a great portion of this route is green during the entire winter, and snow seldom covers it. This road leaves the Gulf Coast at Powderhorn, on Matagorda Bay, which point is difficult of access by land from the north, but may be reached by steamers from New Orleans 5 times a week. There are stores at Powderhorn and Indianola where the traveler can obtain most of the articles necessary for his journey, but it is recommended to supply himself before leaving New Orleans with everything he requires, with the exception of animals, which he will find cheaper in Texas. This road has received a large amount of travel since 1849, is well tracked and defined, and, excepting about 20 miles of hog wallow prairie near Powderhorn, it is an excellent road for carriages and wagons. It passes through a settled country for 250 miles, and within this section supplies can be had at reasonable rates. At Victoria and San Antonio, many fine stores will be found, well supplied with large stocks of goods, embracing all the articles the traveler will require. The next route to the north is that over which the semi-weekly mail to California passes, and which, for a great portion of the way to New Mexico, was traveled and recommended in 1849. This road leaves the Arkansas River at Fort Smith, to which point steamers run during the seasons of high water in the winter and spring. Supplies of all descriptions necessary for the overland journey may be procured at Fort Smith, or at Van Buren on the opposite side of the Arkansas. Horses and cattle are cheap here. The road, on leaving Fort Smith, passes through the Choctaw and Chickasaw country for 180 miles, then crosses Red River by ferryboat at Preston, and runs through the border settlements of northern Texas for 150 miles, within which distances supplies may be procured at moderate prices. This road is accessible to persons desiring to make the entire journey with their own transportation from Tennessee or Mississippi. It may also be reached by taking steamers up Red River to Shreveport or Jefferson. This road also unites with the San Antonio Road at El Paso, and from that point they pass together over the mountains to Fort Yuma and to San Francisco in California. Another road leaves Fort Smith and runs up the south side of the Canadian River to Santa Fe and Albuquerque in New Mexico. This road was discovered, explored, located, and marked out from Fort Smith, Arkansas to Santa Fe, New Mexico. Near Albuquerque, it unites with other roads to California. The Cherokee Trail, also starting from Fort Smith, crosses Grand River at Fort Gibson and runs a little north of west to the Verdigris River. Thence up the valley of this stream on the north side for 80 miles, when it crosses the river and, taking a northwest course, strikes the Arkansas River near Old Fort Man on the Santa Fe Trace. Thence it passes near the base of Pikes Peak and follows down Cherry Creek from its source to its confluence with the South Platte, and from thence over the mountains into Utah and on to California via Fort Bridger and Salt Lake City. For persons who desire to go from the southern states to the gold diggings in the vicinity of Cherry Creek, this route is shorter by some 300 miles than that from Fort Smith via Fort Leavenworth. It is said to be an excellent road and well supplied with the requisites for encamping. It has been traveled by large parties of California emigrants for several years and is well tracked and defined. Grass upon all the roads leaving Fort Smith is sufficiently advanced to afford sustenance to animals by the 1st of April, and from this time until winter sets in, it is abundant. The next route on the north leaves the Missouri River at Westport, Leavenworth City, Atchison, or from other towns above, between either of which points and St. Louis steamers ply during the entire summer season. The necessary outfit of supplies can always be procured at any of the starting points on the Missouri River at moderate rates. This is the great emigrant route from Missouri to California and Oregon, over which so many thousands have traveled within the past few years. The track is broad, well-worn, and cannot be mistaken. It has received the major part of the Mormon emigration and was traversed by the Army in its march to Utah in 1857. At the point where this road crosses the South Platte River, Lieutenant Bryan's road branches off to the left, leading through Bridger's Pass, and thence to Fort Bridger. The Fort Kearny route to the gold region near Pikes Peak also leaves the emigrant road at this place and runs up the South Platte. From Fort Bridger, there are two roads that may be traveled with wagons in the direction of California, one passing Salt Lake City and the other running down Bear River to Soda Springs, intersecting the Salt Lake City Road at the City of Rocks. Near Soda Springs, the Oregon Road turns to the right, passing Fort Hall, and thence down Snake River to Fort Walla Walla. Unless travelers have business in Salt Lake Valley, the Bear River route is much shorter and better in every respect. The road, on leaving the Missouri River, passes for 150 miles through a settled country where grain can be purchased. Organization of companies. Once the route is selected, emigrants should unite into organized companies before commencing the journey. The company should be large enough to furnish an efficient guard for the protection of animals at night and to resist any attack that may be made by Indians. A company of about 50 or 60 persons is considered a proper number for these purposes. Too large a company is apt to create confusion and delay in marching and encamping. The first business after organizing is to elect a captain, in whose judgment and integrity the company reposes confidence. He should be a man of good sense, energy, and decision of character, and if possible, have had some experience upon the plains. The captain directs the order of march, selects the camping places, and has general control over the movements of the company. It is important that all members of the company should sign articles of agreement, binding themselves to submit to the orders of the captain, and to aid and support him in the discharge of his duties. A common fund should be raised for the purchase of extra animals to replace such as may be lost or worn out upon the journey. Each member should also bind himself to assist in carrying the property of anyone whose wagon or team may fail. This mutual obligation makes every man interested in protecting the property of others, as well as his own. The company should have the power to punish anyone who refuses to obey the orders of the captain, or who otherwise misconducts himself. Prairie life is a mixture of pleasure and privation. The traveler is rewarded by the ever-changing scenery, the pure atmosphere, and the excitement of wildlife, but he must expect to encounter hardships and fatigue. All members of the company should be prepared to perform their share of labor cheerfully, and to submit to the necessary restraints. Long journeys are apt to try the tempers of men, and slight causes often produce irritation and discontent. Those who exercise forbearance and endeavor to promote harmony contribute much to the comfort and success of the expedition. An organized company has many advantages over independent parties. The guard duty is light when divided among many, the animals are well herded and guarded, and assistance is always at hand in case of accident or attack. Without organization, even small parties are liable to fall into confusion, and serious difficulties often arise in deciding questions of marching and camping. A well-regulated company moves with order and harmony, and reaches its destination with far less suffering and loss than disorganized bands. Elections of captains. The election of a captain is a matter of great importance and should be made with care. The safety and success of the company depend in a great measure upon the qualifications of the leader. He should be a man of sound judgment, firmness, and decision, and capable of commanding respect and obedience. Experience upon the plains is highly desirable, but good natural sense and a disposition to act for the general good are essential. The captain's duties are arduous and responsible. He must decide upon the hours of marching and halting, select the camping places, assign the guards, and direct all the movements of the company. In cases of danger from Indians or other causes, his promptness and courage may save the whole party. He should be impartial in his decisions, and ready to listen to the advice of experienced members, but firm in carrying out what he believes to be right. Before the election, the company should fully discuss the qualifications of candidates. Popularity alone should not decide the choice. A weak or inefficient captain will cause dissatisfaction and trouble throughout the journey. The election should take place as soon as the company is organized, so that the leader may assume his duties at once. After election, the captain should call the company together and read the Articles of Agreement, explaining the obligations each member has assumed. He should impress upon them the necessity of obedience and harmony. A good captain studies the comfort and welfare of his men, and at the same time maintains the discipline necessary for the success of the expedition. Many companies have suffered severely from bad leadership. The choice of a captain is therefore one of the most important steps in the preparation for the journey. Wagons and teams. The wagon should be of the best quality, made of well-seasoned timber, and constructed with particular reference to the purposes for which it is intended. The bed should be made of strong sheet iron or stout canvas, and the running gear should be light yet durable. The axles should be of iron, and the wheels should have wide tires to prevent sinking in sand or mud. A good wagon will carry from 2,500 to 3,000 pounds. The cover should be of strong Osnaburg or cotton duck, well stretched over bows, and made to shed water. It is well to have a supply of extra spokes, felloes, and other spare parts. The team may consist of mules or oxen. Mules travel faster, but oxen are more steady and endure hardships better. For heavy loads and long journeys, oxen are generally preferred. 6 or 8 oxen or 4 or 6 mules are required for each wagon. The harness or yokes should be strong and well fitted. It is important to have extra harness and yokes. The loading of the wagon requires care. Heavy articles should be placed at the bottom, and the weight distributed evenly. The load should not be too high, as it makes the wagon top-heavy. Provisions and baggage should be packed securely so that they will not shift. A waterproof sheet should be placed over the load under the cover. Each wagon should carry a tool chest with axes, saws, augers, hammers, nails, and other necessary tools. A bucket of tar or grease for the axles is indispensable. With properly constructed wagons and teams, and careful loading, the journey may be performed with comparative ease and safety. Relative merits of mules and oxen. Mules and oxen each have their advocates among prairie travelers. Mules travel more rapidly than oxen and are better for making forced marches. They endure heat better and require less water. They are more active and intelligent and easier to manage in some respects. On the other hand, they are more expensive to purchase, more liable to stampede, and more difficult to herd at night. They require better forage and are more easily injured by hard usage. Oxen are slower, but they draw heavier loads and endure fatigue and hardships better on long journeys. They subsist on coarser grass and keep in better condition where forage is scarce. They are less liable to stampede and can be herded more easily. Their feet are more tender, however, and they are slower in traveling. For families and for those who have heavy loads, oxen are generally preferred. For rapid travel with light loads, mules are better. Many experienced travelers use both, employing oxen for the heavy wagons and mules for lighter vehicles or for riding. The choice depends much upon the nature of the journey and the experience of the travelers. With proper care, either will perform the journey successfully. The main point is to have animals well broken and in good condition when starting, and to treat them kindly and carefully throughout the march. Stores and provisions. The amount and kind of provisions must be regulated by the length of the journey and the number of persons. For each adult, about 3 pounds of breadstuff per day should be allowed. Bacon is the best meat, as it keeps well and is nutritious. Coffee, sugar, and salt are indispensable. Rice, beans, and peas are useful. Desiccated vegetables and fruits are excellent to prevent scurvy. A small quantity of vinegar is useful. The provisions should be packed in strong sacks or barrels. Flour and meal keep best in sacks. Bacon should be packed in boxes or barrels. It is well to have a variety of articles, as a change of diet is important. Hunters can supply fresh meat in many places, but reliance should not be placed upon game alone. A small quantity of pemmican or other concentrated food is useful in case of emergency. Each person should have a supply of antiscorbutics. The total amount of provisions for a journey of 4 or 5 months should be calculated with a liberal margin for delays. It is better to have too much than too little. All provisions should be examined and tested before starting. Nothing should be taken that is likely to spoil. With proper attention to this department, the traveler will avoid much suffering and perhaps save the lives of his party. How packed? The mode of packing the stores and provisions is of great importance. Heavy articles should be placed at the bottom of the wagon and lighter ones on top. The load should be so arranged that it will not shift. Barrels and boxes should be well secured. Sacks of flour and meal should be placed where they will not get wet. A division should be made in the loading so that articles in daily use can be reached without unloading the whole wagon. Cooking utensils should be packed together and kept accessible. Clothing and bedding should be kept dry. Ammunition and arms must be packed securely, yet ready for immediate use. Tools and repair materials should be conveniently placed. Each morning after loading, the wagon should be examined to see that everything is in its place and well secured. At night, when unloading, care should be taken to protect perishable articles from dampness. With proper packing, much time and labor will be saved, and the goods will reach their destination in good condition. Poor packing causes many delays and losses upon the road. Experience soon teaches the best method, but it is well to profit by the experience of others. A systematic arrangement contributes greatly to the comfort and success of the expedition. Desiccated and canned vegetables. Desiccated or dried vegetables are almost equal to the fresh, and are put up in such a compact and portable form as easily to be transported over the plains. They have been extensively used in the Crimean War and by our own army in Utah, and have been very generally approved. They are prepared by cutting fresh vegetables into thin slices and subjecting them to a powerful press, which removes the juice and leaves a solid cake. When required for use, a small piece of this cake is placed in water and boiled, and it swells to its original bulk and nearly recovers its natural flavor. They are very nutritious and keep well for a long time. Canned vegetables and fruits are also excellent for the journey, but they are heavier and more bulky than the desiccated. A small supply of these should be taken, especially tomatoes, which are particularly useful as antiscorbutics. Peas, beans, and other vegetables in cans add variety to the diet and are always acceptable. The desiccated vegetables can be obtained at the stores in the eastern cities and are sold at reasonable prices. They form a very important article in the list of supplies for a long journey, as fresh vegetables cannot be procured after leaving the settlements, and scurvy is one of the most dangerous diseases to which prairie travelers are exposed. A liberal supply of these preparations will do much toward preserving the health of the company. Pemmican, the most portable and simple preparation of subsistence that I know of, and which is used extensively by the Mexicans and Indians, is called pemmican. It is made by cutting the lean parts of the meat into thin slices, drying them in the sun or by a fire until they become brittle, then pounding them into a powder between two stones. This powder is mixed with an equal quantity of melted tallow, and when cool is put into bags made of the hide of the animal. It keeps for a great length of time, and a small quantity contains a large amount of nutriment. It is not very palatable to those who are unaccustomed to it, but it is highly nutritious and very convenient for long journeys. The Indians and voyagers of the north use it almost exclusively when traveling. It can be eaten either raw or cooked, and when boiled with a little flour, it makes a very palatable soup. A man may subsist for a long time upon a very small allowance of pemmican. It is particularly valuable in cases where game is scarce, or when the party is compelled to make forced marches. Travelers should provide themselves with a supply of this article before leaving the settlements, or they can prepare it upon the plains whenever they have an abundance of meat. It forms one of the best resources against starvation. Antiscorbutics, cold flour. I would advise all persons who travel for any considerable time through a country where they can procure no vegetables to carry with them some antiscorbutics, and if they cannot transport desiccated or canned vegetables, citric acid answers a good purpose and is very portable. Wild onions are excellent as antiscorbutics, also wild grapes and greens. An infusion of hemlock leaves is also said to be an antidote to scurvy. The most portable and simple preparation of subsistence that I know of is called cold flour. It is made by parching corn until it is brown, then grinding it into a fine powder. A small quantity of this mixed with water or milk makes a very nutritious and palatable food. It is used extensively by the Indians and Mexicans, and is highly recommended for prairie travelers. A tablespoonful mixed with a pint of water will sustain a man for a day. It is light, compact, and will keep for a long time. Sugar or salt may be added to improve the flavor. This preparation, with a small supply of pemmican and desiccated vegetables, will enable the traveler to subsist for a considerable time when other provisions fail. It is well to have a supply of these articles always on hand in case of emergency. Substitutes in case of necessity. When the regular supplies of the company become exhausted, it is often necessary to resort to substitutes which the country affords. The flesh of the buffalo, deer, antelope, and other game furnishes an excellent substitute for bacon. The tongues of the buffalo are particularly good when cured and smoked. Wild turkeys, geese, ducks, and other birds are found in many places and afford a change of diet. Fish can be caught in some of the streams. The traveler should always be provided with hooks and lines. When game is scarce, the party may sometimes kill a poor ox or mule and use the meat. In cases of extreme necessity, the hides of animals can be eaten after being thoroughly boiled. The Indians often subsist for a long time upon the inner bark of the cottonwood tree. This is nutritious and not unpalatable. The roots of several plants, such as the pomme blanche, are used by the Indians as food. The traveler should make himself acquainted with the different articles which the country produces that may be used in case of necessity. It is always well to have some knowledge of the wild plants and animals which may be turned to account for subsistence. With proper management and a little ingenuity, a party may often sustain itself for a long time in a country where at first sight it would seem impossible to procure food. Amount of supplies. The amount of supplies required depends upon the length of the journey and the number of persons in the company. For a trip of 4 or 5 months, each adult should be provided with about 200 pounds of flour, 100 pounds of bacon, 20 pounds of sugar, 10 pounds of coffee, and a small quantity of salt, pepper, and other condiments. This, with what can be obtained by hunting, will be sufficient. For each person, about 3 pounds of breadstuff per day should be allowed. It is better to have too much than too little, as delays often occur. The supply should be divided among the wagons so that if one is lost, the whole stock is not destroyed. A reserve should always be kept for emergencies. The total weight of provisions for a company should be carefully calculated, and the wagons loaded accordingly. Overloading at the start is a great error, as it breaks down the teams. It is better to start with a moderate load and replenish at points where supplies can be obtained. With proper economy, the amounts I have mentioned will be ample for the journey. The health and strength of the party depend greatly upon the quantity and quality of their food, and no pains should be spared to provide a sufficient supply of wholesome provisions. Clothing. Each person should be provided with 2 woolen shirts, 2 pairs of woolen drawers, 2 pairs of stout woolen pants, 1 woolen coat, 1 overcoat, 2 pairs of stout shoes, 2 pairs of socks, 1 hat, and 1 pair of boots. The clothing should be made large and loose, so as to allow free circulation of the air. Tight clothing is very injurious in a hot climate. Flannel is the best material for shirts and drawers, as it absorbs the perspiration and prevents taking cold. The outer garment should be of strong woolen cloth. A broad-brimmed hat is better than a cap, as it protects the face from the sun. Each man should have a good blanket and a buffalo robe or comforter for bedding. India rubber blankets or ponchos are very useful in rainy weather. The clothing should be changed as often as possible, and the greatest attention paid to personal cleanliness. Vermin are a great annoyance upon the plains, and can only be avoided by frequent changes and washings. The traveler will find it very comfortable to have a complete change of clothing put up in a small bundle, so that he can shift whenever he desires. With a proper supply of clothing, the health and comfort of the party will be greatly promoted. Camp equipage. Arms. The camp equipage should consist of a good tent for each mess, a camp kettle, a frying pan, a coffee pot, a bake kettle or Dutch oven, tin plates, cups, spoons, and knives and forks. The tent should be of strong material and large enough to accommodate the mess comfortably. The Sibley tent is one of the best for prairie traveling. Each wagon should have a large tarpaulin to cover the load and to be used as a tent when necessary. A good supply of ropes, pins, and mallets should be taken. For arms, each man should have a rifle or shotgun, a revolver, and a knife. The rifle should be of a caliber suitable for killing buffalo and other large game. A Colt's revolver is the best for the plains. Ammunition in sufficient quantity should be provided and kept dry. A small supply of powder and lead for running bullets is useful. The arms should be kept in good order and always ready for use. With proper camp equipage and arms, the traveler will be prepared for all the contingencies of the journey and will travel with comfort and security. The tent, cooking utensils, and bedding should be packed so as to be easily accessible at night. A systematic arrangement of the camp equipage contributes greatly to the comfort of the party. The Prairie Traveler, a Handbook for Overland Expeditions. Chapter 2. Marching. The success of a long expedition through an unpopulated country depends mainly on the care taken of the animals and the manner in which they are driven, herded, and guarded. If they are broken down or lost, everything must be sacrificed, and the party becomes perfectly helpless. The great error into which inexperienced travelers are liable to fall, and which probably occasions more suffering and disaster than almost anything else, lies in overworking their cattle at the commencement of the journey. To obviate this, short and easy drives should be made until the teams become habituated to their work, and gradually inured to this particular method of traveling. If animals are overloaded and overworked when they first start out into the prairies, especially if they have recently been taken from grain, they soon fall away, and give out before reaching the end of the journey. Grass and water are abundant and good upon the eastern portions of all the different overland routes. Animals should not, therefore, with proper care, fall away in the least before reaching the mountains, as west of them are long stretches where grass and water are scarce, and it requires the full amount of strength and vigor of animals in good condition to endure the fatigues and hard labor attendant upon the passage of these deserts. Drivers should be closely watched, and never, unless absolutely necessary, permitted to beat their animals, or to force them out of a walk, as this will soon break down the best teams. Those teamsters who make the least use of the whip invariably keep their animals in the best condition. Unless the drivers are checked at the outset, they are very apt to fall into the habit of flogging their teams. It is not only wholly unnecessary but cruel, and should never be tolerated. In traveling with ox teams in the summer season, great benefit will be derived from making early marches, starting with the dawn, and making a nooning during the heat of the day, as oxen suffer much from the heat of the sun in midsummer. These noon halts should, if possible, be so arranged as to be near grass and water, where the animals can improve their time in grazing. When it gets cool, they may be hitched to the wagons again, and the journey continued in the afternoon. 16 or 18 miles a day may thus be made without injury to the beasts, and longer drives can never be expedient, unless in order to reach grass or water. When the requisites for encamping cannot be found at the desired intervals, it is better for the animals to make a very long drive than to encamp without water or grass. The noon halt in such cases may be made without water, and the evening drive lengthened. Careful management of teams at the beginning preserves their strength for the more difficult portions of the journey ahead. Treatment of animals. Proper treatment of animals is essential throughout the march. Drivers must be supervised constantly to prevent abuse. Beating or forcing animals beyond a walk breaks them down quickly. Kind but firm handling keeps teams in the best condition. In summer with oxen, early starts and midday rest near grass and water are highly beneficial. Animals should receive full rest and grazing opportunities when possible. Overloading at the start is a common and costly mistake. Gradual conditioning allows teams to adapt to prairie travel. Spare animals should be provided to replace any that weaken. Daily inspections of harness, feet, and general condition prevent many problems. When wagons break down, loads should be shifted promptly so the affected team can catch up. Animals in good condition at the mountains will endure the arid stretches beyond. Consistent, humane treatment throughout ensures the expedition reaches its destination without catastrophic loss of transport. Water. The scarcity of water upon some of the routes across the plains occasionally exposes the traveler to intense suffering and renders it a matter of much importance for him to learn the best methods of guarding against the disasters liable to occur to men and animals in the absence of this most necessary element. In mountainous districts, water can generally be found either in springs, the dry beds of streams, or in holes in the rocks, where they are sheltered from rapid evaporation. For example, in the Hueco tanks 30 miles east of El Paso, New Mexico, upon the Fort Smith Road, where there is an immense reservoir in a cave, water can always be found. This reservoir receives the drainage of a mountain. During a season of the year when there are occasional showers, water will generally be found in low places where there is a substratum of clay. But after the dry season has set in, these pools evaporate, and it is necessary to dig wells. The lowest spots should be selected for this purpose when the grass is green and the surface earth moist. In searching for water along the dry, sandy beds of streams, it is well to try the earth with a stick or ramrod, and if this indicates moisture, water will generally be obtained by excavation. Streams often sink in light and porous sand, and sometimes make their appearance again lower down, where the bed is more tenacious. But it is a rule with prairie travelers, in searching for water in a sandy country, to ascend the streams, and the nearer their sources are approached, the more water will be found in a dry season. Where it becomes necessary to sink a well in a stream the bed of which is quicksand, a flour barrel, perforated with small holes, should be used as a curb to prevent the sand from caving in. The barrel must be forced down as the sand is removed, and when, as is often the case, there is an undercurrent through the sand, the well will be continually filled with water. There are many indications of water known to old campaigners, although none of them are absolutely infallible. The most certain of them are deep green cottonwood or willow trees growing in depressed localities, also flags, water rushes, tall green grass, etc. The fresh tracks and trails of animals converging toward a common center, and the flight of birds and waterfowl toward the same points will also lead to water. Jornadas. In some localities, 50 or 60 miles and even greater distances are frequently traversed without water. These long stretches are called by the Mexicans jornadas, or days' journeys. There is one in New Mexico called Jornada del Muerto, which is 78.5 miles in length, where, in a dry season, there is not a drop of water. Yet with proper care, this drive can be made with ox or mule teams and without loss or injury to the animals. On arriving at the last camping ground before entering upon the Jornada, all the animals should be as well rested and refreshed as possible. To ensure this, they must be turned out upon the best grass that can be found and allowed to eat and drink as much as they desire during the entire halt. Should the weather be very warm and the teams composed of oxen, the march should not be resumed until it begins to cool in the afternoon. They should be carefully watered just previous to being hitched up and started out upon the Jornada, the water kegs having been previously filled. The drive is then commenced and continued during the entire night, with 10 or 15 minutes rest every 2 hours. About daylight, a halt should be made, and the animals immediately turned out to graze for 2 hours, during which time, especially if there is dew upon the grass, they will have become considerably refreshed, and may be put to the wagons again and driven until the heat becomes oppressive toward noon, when they are again turned out upon a spot where the grass is good, and if possible where there are shade trees. About 4 p.m. they are again started, and the march continued into the night, and as long as they can be driven without suffering. If, however, there should be dew, which is seldom the case on the plains, it would be well to turn out the animals several times during the second night, and by morning, if they are in good condition, the Jornada of 70 or 80 miles will have been passed without any great amount of suffering. I am supposing in this case that the road is firm and free from sand. Advance and rear guards. A few men, well mounted, should constitute the advance and rear guards for each train of wagons passing through the Indian country. Their duty will be to keep a vigilant lookout in all directions, and to reconnoiter places where Indians would be likely to lie in ambush. Should hostile Indians be discovered, the fact should be at once reported to the commander, who, if he anticipates an attack, will rapidly form his wagons into a circle, or corral, with the animals toward the center, and the men on the inside, with their arms in readiness to repel an attack from without. If these arrangements be properly attended to, few parties of Indians will venture to make an attack, as they are well aware that some of their warriors might pay with their lives the forfeit of such indiscretion. I know an instance where one resolute man, pursued for several days by a large party of Comanches on the Santa Fe Trace, defended himself by dismounting and pointing his rifle at the foremost whenever they came near him, which always had the effect of turning them back. This was repeated so often that the Indians finally abandoned the pursuit and left the traveler to pursue his journey without farther molestation. During all this time he did not discharge his rifle. Had he done so, he would doubtless have been killed. Advance and rear guards provide early warning and allow time to prepare defenses, greatly increasing the safety of the entire party in hostile territory. Selection of camp. The security of animals, and indeed the general safety of a party, in traveling through a country occupied by hostile Indians, depends greatly upon the judicious selection of camps. One of the most important considerations that should influence the choice of a locality is its capability for defense. If the camp be pitched beside a stream, a concave bend, where the water is deep, with a soft alluvial bed enclosed by high and abrupt banks, will be the most defensible, and all the more should the concavity form a peninsula. The advantages of such a position are obvious to a soldier's eye, as that part of the encampment enclosed by the stream is naturally secure and leaves only one side to be defended. The concavity of the bend will enable the defending party to cross its fire in case of attack from the exposed side. The bend of the stream will also form an excellent corral in which to secure animals from a stampede, and thereby diminish the number of sentinels needful around the camp. In herding animals at night within the bend of a stream, a spot should be selected where no clumps of brush grow on the side where the animals are posted. If thickets of brush cannot be avoided, sentinels should be placed near them to guard against Indians, who might take advantage of this cover to steal animals or shoot them down with arrows before their presence were known. In camping away from streams, it is advisable to select a position in which one or more sides of the encampment shall rest upon the crest of an abrupt hill or bluff. The Prairie Indians make their camps upon the summits of the hills, whence they can see in all directions, and thus avoid a surprise. The line of tents should be pitched on that side of the camp most exposed to attack, and sentinels so posted that they may give alarm in time for the main body to rally and prepare for defense. Proper camp selection enhances both security and comfort while minimizing risks from surprise attacks or stampedes. Sanitary considerations. When camping near rivers and lakes surrounded by large bodies of timber and a luxuriant vegetation, which produces a great amount of decomposition and consequent exhalations of malaria, it is important to ascertain what localities will be the least likely to generate disease, and to affect the sanitary condition of men occupying them. This subject has been thoroughly examined by Dr. Robert Johnson, Inspector General of Hospitals in the English Army in 1845, and, as his conclusions are deduced from enlarged experience and extended research, they should have great weight. Camp diseases most abound near the muddy banks of large rivers, near swamps and ponds, and on grounds which have been recently stripped of their woods. Encampments should avoid the immediate vicinity of swamps and rivers where the air is noxious. The influence of such noxious exhalations does not extend beyond a certain limit, and rising grounds, woods, or other impediments can break the current and weaken its pernicious effects. A position a moderate distance from the margin on level ground is often less unhealthy than one farther away on an exposed height, where the cause strikes more forcibly amid irregular temperatures and winds. Guard against strong winds independently of their source, as they can carry noxious matter. Experience shows that simple wetting with rain in the open air rarely causes sickness when men are inured to weather, whereas crowding in close tents generates moisture and contagion from earth exhalations and accumulated animal emanations. Tents with painted canvas floors, light roofs, and moderate sidewalls provide better protection than fully enclosed ones. The streams intersecting the Great Prairies have sparse vegetation on their banks, so one of the fundamental causes of malaria is largely absent, and persons may often encamp with impunity directly upon them. Proper attention to these principles preserves the health of the party and prevents fevers and other camp diseases that have destroyed many expeditions. Dr. Jackson's report. Dr. Robert Johnson's report, introduced here for its practical value drawn from military experience, emphasizes that camp diseases thrive near stagnant or decomposing areas rather than in well-ventilated open spaces, as some theories once suggested. Fashion and unproven opinions have led to harmful placements despite contrary facts from observation. The noxious influence ascends and is amplified by height and irregular air movement, making broken hilly terrain more dangerous than steady plains with gentle breezes. Crowding men in unventilated tents raises internal temperatures and encourages moisture from the earth, producing conditions far more injurious than exposure to weather outside. Historical examples, such as high mortality in crowded barracks, prisons like the Black Hole of Calcutta, and overloaded ship holds, demonstrate the deadly effects of poor ventilation and accumulated emanations. In contrast, irregular troops with minimal shelter suffer far less contagion. For prairie travel, where timber is sparse along streams, these risks are reduced, but vigilance in site selection remains essential. The report advocates practical remedies like canvas flooring to block earth moisture and lighter tent designs. These insights, validated across armies and climates, guide travelers to choose elevated, breezy, and open camps away from swamps, while avoiding unnecessary enclosure that breeds its own hazards. Following such sanitary rules significantly lowers sickness rates on long journeys. Picket guards. When a party is sufficiently strong, a picket guard should be stationed during the night some 200 or 300 yards in advance of the point most open to assault, and on low ground, so that an enemy approaching over higher country can be seen against the sky while the sentinel remains screened. Sentinels should not keep fires unless hidden from distant view. During the day, pickets occupy summits of high eminences for vigilant lookout in all directions. If beyond hailing distance, they use pre-agreed telegraphic signals, raising a cap on a rifle muzzle and circling for distant Indians, swinging the cap and running in a circle for near rapid approach, pointing the piece and walking in the direction to indicate origin. Sudden nearby threats warrant firing to alarm the camp. These signals, when understood, greatly enhance security and communication. All persons except guards and herders must remain within sentinel limits after dark. Picket guards receive strict, minute orders known to the entire party to avoid false alarms. On dark nights, sitting improves visibility and reduces exposure. Horses, and especially mules, detect strangers through acute hearing and smell, signaling by erect ears, fixed stance, and head direction, prompting immediate alertness. Dogs can assist but often sleep soundly. Well-posted and disciplined pickets provide early warning, enabling timely defense and preventing surprise attacks or stampedes in hostile territory. Stampedes. A stampede is more to be dreaded upon the plains than almost any disaster that can happen. It not unfrequently occurs that very many animals are irretrievably lost in this way, and the objects of an expedition thus defeated. Horses and mules become frightened and run from slight causes, such as a wolf or deer passing near, or even without perceptible reason, as when an entire herd of 200 scattered for miles. Indians excel at causing stampedes by approaching stealthily with rattles and frightful noises, then rushing in screaming to terrify the animals and drive them away while dividing their party to pursue and resist recovery. To prevent stampedes, maintain vigilant herding and guarding at all times. Enclosures or corrals protect animals when threats appear. Secure good horses ready for instant use by herdsmen, who should ride the bell mare to turn the herd back toward camp gradually. In Indian country, anticipate attempts and keep herds close. Experience shows that proper organization, night corralling, and alert guards greatly reduce risks. Once started, animals may scatter widely, requiring days to recover and potentially dooming the journey. Constant attention to animal behavior and early intervention preserve the transportation essential for success across the plains. Corralling wagons. When a halt is made, the wagons are corralled by bringing the two front ones near and parallel, then driving the next pair outside with front wheels touching rear wheels of the previous, turning the rear outward to form a circle, continuing until complete. An opening of about 20 yards between the last wagons allows animals to pass in and out, closable with ropes. This forms an excellent barricade against Indian attacks and a secure enclosure for yoking cattle. Similar enclosures protect horses and mules during stampede attempts. Corralling provides a strong defensive position where men inside with arms can repel assaults, while animals remain safe in the center. It is indispensable for large trains in hostile areas and facilitates orderly camp routines. Proper formation requires practice but becomes efficient with experience. When combined with picket guards and careful site selection, corrals transform an open camp into a fortified position capable of withstanding significant threats. Travelers should always prioritize quick and correct corralling upon halting, especially at night or in dangerous country, to safeguard both people and livestock throughout the expedition. The Prairie Traveler, a Handbook for Overland Expeditions. Chapter 3. Repairing Broken Wagons. The accidents most liable to happen to wagons on the plains arise from the great dryness of the atmosphere and the consequent shrinkage and contraction of the woodwork in the wheels. Tires work loose, and wheels passing over sidling ground often fall down, breaking spokes at the hub. It is essential for prairie travelers to know how to repair such damages or guard against them. Wheels should be examined frequently. Loose tires can be tightened immediately with hoop iron or wooden wedges driven in pairs from opposite sides. Another temporary remedy is to remove wheels after encamping and soak them in water overnight to swell the wood, though this requires repetition. When tires run off near a shop or forge, they may be tied on with rawhide or ropes. For a broken rear wheel, remove it and lash a stout pole under the axle outside the bed, extending forward above the front wheel and dragging behind to keep the axle level. The wagon can then be driven forward after lightening the load. For a front wheel failure, swap rear wheels to the front axle and use a sound front wheel on the rear, then apply the pole method. When spokes shrink more than felloes and loosen in the hub, cut out sections of the felloe on opposite sides, wrap with wagon bow or barrel hoops secured by nails or tacks to reduce circumference and draw spokes tight. Heat and reset the tire to restore strength. Tires should be bolted and nuts used to prevent them from coming off. These practical expedients allow repairs in the wilderness without blacksmiths, preventing total loss of wagons on long journeys. Fording rivers. Many streams across the routes are broad and shallow with quicksand beds that become boggy and unstable in high water, making crossing difficult. Before any visible rise, undercurrents loosen sand, requiring great caution. Upon reaching an uncrossed river, test the ford by sending a man across on foot. If the sand holds firm underfoot, it is safe. For soft areas, use sharp sticks driven into the bottom to mark the firmest path, stepping rapidly to avoid sinking. Footmen should cross first to pack the sand. Lead horses across without stopping. Water them beforehand to prevent pausing. Wagons must move steadily, never halt in the river, as wheels sink quickly. Mules may lie down in fear and require roping out. Raise wagon beds with wooden blocks at corners to keep contents dry when water reaches the bed but remains fordable. For deep, rapid currents, attach lariats to lead animals and have mounted men guide from front and side with whips. Ford obliquely downstream when possible, as current assists passage. Crossing upstream risks strong resistance and drowning animals. Double teams for heavy loads against the current, with men leading and assisting. These methods ensure safe river crossings with minimal loss. Quicksand. Quicksand in riverbeds poses significant hazards during fording. Test thoroughly with a man on foot using sticks to mark safe paths. Rapid stepping prevents sinking for humans. Animals and wagons must not stop as feet and wheels embed quickly. Horses should be led and pre-watered. Mules often panic, lie down, and refuse to rise, necessitating ropes for extraction. Even on firm ground, they may need help standing. Pack sand first with foot traffic. Choose fords carefully and maintain steady movement. Experience shows that vigilance and proper technique allow safe passage over unstable beds that appear firm but yield under weight or stillness. Avoid known quicksand areas when possible, or prepare with markers and assistance for each crossing. Wagon boats. For deep, unfordable streams with high banks, construct a temporary boat from a wagon bed. Stretch a lariat or rope across the river using a swimmer with a light cord, then pull the heavier rope over and secure it. Fill the wagon bed with empty, sealed water casks lashed securely, or use a tent fly, pollen, or wagon cover wrapped tightly around the bed and tied. Place the improvised boat in the water, attach to the ferry rope, load goods or men, and pull across from the opposite bank. Return empty for next loads. Wagons can be floated by securing them to axles and using steadying ropes. Cannons or heavy items can be separated and ferried similarly. This method safely transports entire trains across rapid, deep streams without loss, as demonstrated on multiple expeditions. Proper bank preparation for entry and exit, firm landing spots, and strong ropes ensure efficiency. Bull boats. Bull boats, made from buffalo hides stretched over a frame of willows or poles in a boat shape and stitched tightly, provide another lightweight option for crossing. They are buoyant and easily constructed where timber and hides are available. Used by Indians and trappers, they carry men and light loads effectively. For larger needs, multiple boats or combinations with wagon elements work. They complement wagon boats for parties lacking casks or covers. Proper lashing and careful loading prevent leaks or capsizing in currents. These portable skin boats have long served frontier travelers for river passage when fording is impossible. Crossing packs. When fording with pack animals, remove packs carefully or raise them high on the animals to keep contents dry. Lead packs across firm paths marked in advance. In deep water, use swimming techniques or boats to ferry packs separately while animals swim. Secure packs against shifting or wetting. For difficult crossings, double-line animals and use guiding ropes. Experience shows that separating loads and using assistance prevents loss of supplies in swift or deep rivers. Always test fords and prepare animals by removing heavy or fragile items first. Swimming animals. For wide, swift rivers too deep to ford, swim animals safely. Drive a horse into the water with a cord on the bridle bit, then seize its tail to be towed across. Guide with the cord or water splashes if it veers. Riders should use loose reins, hold the mane for balance, and avoid pulling except for direction. For large parties, use ferry methods with boats for men and goods while animals swim guided. Oblique downstream fording assists with current. Never overload swimming animals. These techniques, proven in expeditions, allow safe passage with minimal risk when combined with ropes and preparation. Animals swim strongly when handled calmly. Marching with loose horses. When it becomes necessary to march with loose horses, they should be kept well together and driven in front of the train. A few of the best mounted and most reliable men should be placed in front and on the flanks to prevent the animals from scattering. The rear guard should follow closely to keep stragglers from dropping behind. Loose horses travel faster than wagons and should not be allowed to graze during the march except at the regular halts. When the train halts, the horses should be turned out to graze under a strong guard. If Indians are in the neighborhood, extra vigilance is required, as they are constantly watching for opportunities to stampede or steal animals. Horses driven loose are more liable to stampede than when tied to the wagons. The herders should be well armed and instructed to keep the herd compact. At night, the horses should be corralled with the wagons or picketed securely. This method of marching is often adopted when animals are numerous and wagons few, but it requires experienced and trustworthy herders. With proper management, large numbers of loose horses may be driven long distances without serious loss. Herding mules. Mules are more difficult to herd than horses because they are more inclined to wander and less disposed to keep together. A bell mare should always be used, as the mules will follow her more readily than a horse. The bell should be of a clear, distinct tone that can be heard at a considerable distance. The herder should keep the mules well closed up and prevent them from scattering in search of better grass. Mules are very cunning and will often slip away from the herd if not closely watched. When grazing, they should be kept on good grass and not allowed to stray far. In dangerous localities, the mules should be driven into the corral at night. If a mule becomes separated, it will often return to the last camping place, making it necessary to send men back to recover it. Mules that have been long accustomed to herding together become more manageable. The herder should ride a steady horse and carry a good whip to turn back stragglers. With careful herding, mules can be kept in good condition and prevented from straying or being stolen. Best methods of marching. The best method of marching is to start early in the morning and make a long drive before the heat of the day, then halt for several hours during the middle of the day near grass and water. The march can be resumed in the afternoon and continued until near night. This plan allows the animals to rest during the hottest part of the day and to graze when it is cool. For ox teams, it is especially beneficial as they suffer greatly from the heat. The daily distance should be regulated by the condition of the road and the strength of the teams. 16 to 18 miles a day is a good average for loaded wagons. Longer drives should only be made when necessary to reach grass or water. The train should be kept well closed up and no wagon allowed to fall behind except in case of accident. When a wagon breaks down, it should be turned out of the road and repaired while the others pass. Strict order and regularity in marching contribute greatly to the comfort and success of the expedition. Herding and guarding animals. The herding and guarding of animals at night is a matter of great importance. In the Indian country, the animals should always be corralled or picketed. When corralled, they are much more secure against stampedes and theft. A strong guard should be kept, with sentinels posted at proper intervals. The guard should be changed regularly so that all men get sufficient rest. Herders must be vigilant and not allow the animals to stray. In dangerous localities, the best horses should be kept saddled and ready for instant use. Indians often attempt to stampede animals by creeping near and making sudden noises. A well-organized system of herding and guarding prevents many serious losses. When animals are turned out to graze at night, they should be closely watched, and the herders should be mounted. The bell mare or a few gentle animals help keep the herd together. With proper attention to these details, animals can be preserved in good condition and protected from loss throughout the journey. Descending mountains. When descending steep mountains with wagons, great care is necessary to prevent accidents. The wheels should be locked with chains or ropes, and men should hold back on the wheels with ropes to control the descent. In very steep places, it may be necessary to unload the wagon and lower it by hand with ropes. The load should be lightened as much as possible before descending. Animals should be kept well in hand and not allowed to go too fast. In some places, it is advisable to take the wagons apart and carry them down in pieces. Experience has shown that with proper precautions, even heavy wagons can be taken down very steep declivities without serious injury. The road should be examined in advance and the safest route selected. Men should be stationed to assist at difficult points. By using these methods, mountain descents can be made with comparative safety, although they are always attended with more or less labor and delay. Storms. Northers. Storms upon the prairies are often very violent, and travelers should be prepared to meet them. When a storm is approaching, the wagons should be corralled as quickly as possible and the animals secured inside. Tents should be well fastened and everything made as secure as possible. Northers or cold north winds are particularly severe in the winter and spring and are accompanied by sudden and great falls in temperature. Men should be provided with warm clothing and blankets to protect themselves from the cold. During storms, it is best to remain in camp until the weather moderates. The animals suffer greatly from exposure to cold rains and winds, and every effort should be made to shelter them. With proper precautions, the party can pass through the severest storms without serious injury. The sudden changes of temperature on the prairies make it necessary to be always prepared for bad weather. The Prairie Traveler, a handbook for overland expeditions. Chapter 4. Packing. Packing with mules or horses offers a faster and more flexible alternative to wagons for certain expeditions, especially in rough or mountainous terrain. Proper saddles and methods are essential to prevent injuries and ensure efficient travel. The Grimsley pack saddle is highly recommended for its strength and design. It distributes weight evenly and minimizes sores when used correctly. Travelers should master the technique of balancing loads and securing them firmly to withstand long marches over varied ground. Careful packing preserves animal strength and prevents loss of supplies on the trail. Saddles. The choice of saddle greatly influences the comfort and condition of pack animals. The Grimsley saddle, used by the U.S. Army, stands out for durability and practical design. It features a strong tree that fits well on the animal's back and allows secure attachment of loads. Other saddles, such as those of European or California styles, have merits but often prove less suitable for heavy prairie work. A good saddle prevents shifting loads and reduces the risk of wounds. Proper fitting and padding are critical for long journeys. Mexican method. The Mexican method of packing employs a simple yet effective rig with crossed ropes and balanced loads. It allows quick adjustment and works well with rawhide or leather straps. Loads are divided evenly on each side of the mule, with the aparejo, a padded pad, providing cushioning. This system is favored by experienced Mexican and Indian packers for its reliability in rough country. It requires skill to tie securely, but permits rapid loading and unloading. Many frontier travelers adopt variations of this method for its practicality. Madrina, or bell mare. In herding and packing mules, a bell mare, madrina, proves invaluable. Mules become strongly attached to her and follow wherever she leads. The bell produces a clear tone audible at a distance, helping herders maintain control. During marches or stampedes, mounting the bell mare and riding ahead often brings the entire herd back to camp. This attachment simplifies management of large mule trains and reduces straying. A reliable bell mare is one of the most useful assets for pack expeditions. Attachment of the mule illustrated. The proper attachment of the mule to the bell mare or within the herd follows natural instincts. Mules cluster around the madrina and respond to her movements. Illustrations in the original text show how the bell is suspended and how ropes or halters connect animals without restricting natural following behavior. This setup prevents scattering and allows herders to guide the group efficiently. Understanding these attachments helps maintain order during travel and grazing. Best method of packing. The best method involves balancing loads precisely on either side of the animal, using a well-fitted saddle and secure lashings. Heavy items ride low with lighter or softer goods on top. The diamond hitch or similar knots hold everything firmly yet allow quick release. Loads should not exceed the animal's capacity, typically around 200 to 250 pounds for a strong mule. Regular checks during halts prevent shifting or chafing. This approach, combined with gradual conditioning, keeps animals in good condition over long distances. Hoppling animals. Hobbling, restricts animals from wandering far while allowing them to graze. A simple hobble connects the front legs with a short rope or rawhide, permitting limited movement but preventing rapid travel. For kicking animals, a forked stick fastened to the bridle can deter the habit effectively. Hobbling at night or during extended grazing periods conserves herding effort. Proper technique avoids injury while providing necessary freedom. This practice is essential when secure corrals are unavailable. Selecting horses and mules. In selecting horses and mules for packing, choose those that are sound, gentle, and well broken to the pack saddle. Mules are generally preferred for packing on the prairies because they endure fatigue better, subsist on coarser grass, and are less liable to stampede than horses. They should be from 4 to 7 years old, with strong backs, sound feet, and good wind. Avoid animals that are vicious or inclined to kick. A good pack mule should carry from 200 to 250 pounds without injury. Horses require more attention and better forage, but they travel faster and are useful for riding. Select animals that have been accustomed to the country and climate if possible. Examine their backs carefully for old sores and their feet for soundness. It is better to pay a higher price for good animals than to take inferior ones at a low cost, as the latter will often fail on a long journey. With proper selection and care, pack animals will perform their duty well and reach the end of the expedition in good condition. Grama and bunch grass. Grama and bunch grasses are the best pasturage for horses and mules on the prairies. Grama grass grows in tufts or bunches and is highly nutritious. It cures well on the ground and remains good through the winter. Bunch grass is also excellent and is found in many parts of the country west of the Missouri River. Animals thrive upon these grasses and keep in good condition when they can be obtained. In sandy or alkaline districts, the grass is often poor and insufficient. Travelers should always seek out the best grass for their animals and allow them to graze as much as possible. When grass is abundant, animals recover rapidly from fatigue. In seasons of drought or late in the fall, grass becomes scarce, and it is necessary to provide grain or to make shorter marches. A knowledge of the different kinds of grass and their localities is of great value to the packer. European saddles. European saddles are generally too light and frail for the rough work of prairie traveling. They are often made with high pommels and cantles, which interfere with the proper adjustment of the pack. The trees are frequently weak and soon break under heavy loads. The padding is apt to slip and cause wounds. For military purposes in Europe they may answer, but they are not well adapted to the wants of the prairie packer. The weight is badly distributed, and the girths are often insufficient. Travelers who have used them on long journeys generally discard them in favor of the American or Mexican pack saddles. The Grimsley saddle is much superior to any European pattern for the purposes of overland expeditions. California saddle. The California saddle is a strong, heavy saddle well adapted to packing. It has a large tree covered with rawhide, high pommel and cantle, and is capable of bearing heavy loads. It is used extensively in California and on the Pacific coast. The stirrups are large and strong, and the whole saddle is made for hard service. It answers a good purpose for packing, but the Grimsley saddle is preferred by many for its better distribution of weight and greater comfort to the animal. The California saddle is heavy, but its durability compensates for the extra weight. It is particularly useful in mountainous districts where great strength is required. Saddle wounds. Saddle wounds are among the most common and troublesome injuries to which pack animals are subject. They are caused by ill-fitting saddles, uneven loads, or carelessness in packing. When a wound appears, the load should be lightened or shifted to the opposite side, and the animal allowed to rest until healed. The wound should be washed with cold water and a little salt and kept clean. A piece of rawhide or soft leather placed under the saddle often prevents chafing. If the wound is deep, it should be dressed with simple ointment. Animals with sore backs should not be packed until completely healed. Prevention is better than cure, and careful fitting of the saddle and even loading will save much suffering and delay. Alkali. Alkali water and alkali dust are very injurious to animals. When water charged with alkali is drunk, it often produces colic and diarrhea. The dust affects the eyes and nostrils. To prevent injury from alkali water, mix a little vinegar or acid with it, or use alum to neutralize it. When animals show signs of suffering from alkali, give them a drench of grease or oil. In districts where alkali abounds, it is important to select camps where good water can be found. The grass in alkaline regions is often poor and should be avoided when better pasturage is near. With proper precautions, the injurious effects of alkali may be greatly diminished. Flies. Flies are a great annoyance to animals on the prairies, especially in the summer months. They collect in swarms about the eyes, nostrils, and wounds and cause much irritation. Animals become restless and do not graze well. To protect them, smear the parts with tar or a mixture of grease and tar. A piece of cloth or a branch waved over the head drives them away temporarily. In very bad localities, it may be necessary to travel at night and rest during the day. Smoke fires in camp help to keep flies away. Constant annoyance from flies reduces the condition of animals and should be guarded against as much as possible. Colic. Colic is a common and dangerous disease among horses and mules on the plains. It is often caused by drinking bad water, eating too much grass when heated, or sudden changes of food. The animal shows signs of pain by pawing, rolling, and looking at its flanks. Prompt treatment is necessary. Give a pint of raw linseed oil or a drench of warm water with ginger and salt. Walking the animal gently often relieves the pain. If the attack is severe, bleed from the neck vein. Prevention is best secured by regular feeding, careful watering, and avoiding sudden changes. With prompt attention, most cases of colic can be cured. Rattlesnake bites. Cures for the bite. Rattlesnake bites are not uncommon on the prairies, and travelers should know how to treat them. The bite produces swelling and great pain. The best immediate remedy is to suck the wound and apply a ligature above it. Then wash the part with ammonia or spirits of camphor. A piece of raw liver or the flesh of a freshly killed animal bound on the wound is said to draw out the poison. Some travelers use a mixture of gunpowder and salt moistened with water as a poultice. The Indians use various roots and herbs with success. The wound should be kept open and discharging. Give the animal warm drinks and keep it quiet. With prompt and proper treatment, the bite is seldom fatal to horses or mules. Always be cautious in grassy or rocky places where snakes abound. The Prairie Traveler, a handbook for overland expeditions. Chapter 5. Bivouacs. In traveling with pack animals, it is not always convenient or practicable to transport tents, and the traveler's ingenuity is often taxed in devising the most available means for making himself comfortable and secure against winds and storms. Experienced voyagers can quickly erect comfortable shelters using only materials provided by nature. Almost all people in different parts of the world have their own peculiar methods of bivouacking. Fortunately for travelers upon the plains, the atmosphere is pure and dry during the greater part of the year, with little rain or dew and no marshes to generate malaria. The night air is soft and exhilarating, and many prefer sleeping in the open to the confined air of a tent or house. Shelter becomes necessary only during the rainy season. With pack trains, various substitutes for tents must be improvised. A very secure protection against storms is the half-faced camp, made by planting two upright forked poles, laying a cross pole in the forks, and stretching a gutta-percha cloth, canvas, or blankets from it at an angle of about 45 degrees to the ground, fastened with pins. A fire in front carries smoke away. This shelters 3 or 4 men effectively against wind and rain. Tente d'abri. The French troops in the Crimea used the tente d'abri, or shelter tent, composed of square pieces of cloth with buttons and buttonholes. It is pitched by planting two upright stakes connected by a cord, then laying the canvas over the rope and securing the lower edges to the ground. This provides basic defense against weather. For permanent camps, a shallow basement is excavated and earth banked outside. On marches, the pieces are carried by soldiers. It served as the main shelter for much of the French army until late in the campaign. Similar, simple shelter tents can be adapted for prairie use with pack trains when full tents are impractical. Gutta percha knapsack tent. A tent knapsack invented by Mr. John Ryder of New York combines shelter and packing utility. Each piece is a gutta percha sheet that converts into a waterproof knapsack. When fastened together, several pieces form a larger sheet stretched over a rope between two poles or rifles, pinned at the sides. A sheet of 4 knapsacks covers space for 5 to 7 men. It protects against dampness and serves multiple purposes, including as a shawl. Tested and recommended by a board of Army officers, it offers advantages for prairie travelers with pack trains. Compact, durable, and versatile for both marching and shelter. Comanche Lodge. The Comanche Lodge, used by prairie tribes and traders, consists of 8 to 10 straight peeled poles about 20 feet long, covered with buffalo hides or canvas. 3 poles form a tripod, with others laid into the forks and spread equidistant. A line secures the framework. The covering is raised, spread, and pegged, with an open apex and flaps for draft. A fire in the center provides warmth, with smoke drawn out effectively. This conical structure offers excellent shelter in all weather, and is particularly warm in winter when properly managed. Canvas serves as a good substitute for hides. Sibley tent. The Sibley tent, invented by Major H. H. Sibley, uses a single upright standard on an iron tripod instead of multiple poles. The tripod supports cooking and folds for packing. It shelters 12 men comfortably and was used successfully by the Army in Utah during severe winter conditions. For more room, it can be suspended from an external tripod. A basement excavation adds warmth and space in cold weather. Its design allows an internal fire with good draft from the wings, providing superior comfort, ventilation, and economy compared to many other tents for cold weather campaigning. Camp furniture. Portable camp furniture enhances comfort on the plains. Illustrations show camp chairs of various designs, lightweight and foldable. A camp table provides a stable surface for meals or writing. Field cots offer elevated sleeping platforms. A camp bureau organizes personal items efficiently. A mess chest keeps cooking utensils and supplies secure and accessible. These items, though simple, greatly improve daily life in bivouac without adding excessive weight when properly designed for packing. Litters. Litters are essential for transporting the sick or wounded. A horse litter uses 2 poles attached to saddles on 2 horses, with a bed suspended between. A hand litter, carried by men, serves for shorter distances. Proper construction and padding ensure the patient rides with minimal jolting. These conveyances allow continued movement of the party even when members cannot ride or walk. Rapid traveling. For rapid traveling with pack animals, loads must be light and well balanced. Select strong, conditioned mules or horses. Make early marches and keep drives moderate to preserve animal strength. Carry minimal but essential supplies. Experienced packers can move swiftly over long distances by maintaining good order, frequent short halts for grazing, and careful attention to animal condition. This method suits scouts, messengers, or light expeditions where speed is critical. Fuel. Fuel is not always abundant upon the prairies, and the traveler should make himself acquainted with the different kinds that are to be found and the best methods of using them. Buffalo chips, bois de vache, form the principal fuel in many parts of the country where timber is scarce. When dry, they burn well and make a hot fire with little smoke. They are gathered and piled up at the camping places. Dry grass and weeds are also used, but they burn rapidly and require constant attention. In wooded districts, cottonwood, willow, and other softwoods are found along the streams. These make a quick fire, but the wood is soon consumed. Mesquite wood, where it grows, is excellent fuel. In the mountains, pine and cedar are abundant and make good fires. The traveler should always provide himself with a sufficient supply of fuel before night, as it is often difficult to find it after dark. A small hatchet or axe is indispensable for cutting wood. Making fires. The proper method of making fires is of great importance in camp. The fire should be built in a place sheltered from the wind, and the wood arranged so as to give the most heat with the least smoke. For cooking, a small fire with coals is best. For warmth at night, a larger fire with logs or buffalo chips is used. The Indian method of building a fire with the ends of sticks toward the center, pushing them in as they burn, is economical and gives a steady heat. A fire should never be left burning when the camp is abandoned, as it may set the prairie on fire. When fuel is scarce, the fire should be carefully extinguished with earth or sand. Matches should be carried in a waterproof case, and a small piece of punk or tinder kept for starting fires in wet weather. Fires on the prairies. Fires on the prairies are a frequent and serious danger, especially in the fall when the grass is dry. They are often started by lightning, by careless travelers, or by Indians. When a prairie fire is seen approaching, the grass should be burned around the camp in a circle large enough to afford protection. The party should then move to the burned ground. If there is time, a backfire may be started to meet the advancing flames. Animals should be secured in the corral or driven to the burned area. Prairie fires travel with great rapidity when driven by the wind, and great vigilance is necessary to avoid them. The smoke can often be seen at a great distance, giving time for preparation. In the spring, when the grass is green, the danger is much less. Jerking meat. Jerking meat is the best method of preserving it upon the prairies when salt is scarce. The meat is cut into thin slices and hung upon a framework of poles over a slow fire or in the sun until thoroughly dried. It should be turned frequently and protected from flies. When properly jerked, it will keep for a long time and is very nutritious. It can be eaten dry or boiled with water and flour to make soup. Buffalo, deer, and antelope meat are excellent when jerked. The tongues are particularly good when cured and smoked. Jerked meat is light and compact and forms an important part of the supplies for long journeys. With a supply of this article, the traveler is never entirely dependent upon game. Making lariats. Lariats are indispensable for securing animals at night. They should be made of rawhide or of good hemp rope. Rawhide lariats are very strong when properly prepared, but they shrink when wet and are liable to kink. Hemp lariats are more convenient and do not shrink. The lariat should be about 40 feet long, with a strong loop or ring at one end. It is used by fastening one end to the animal's neck and the other to a stake driven in the ground, or by tying to the forefoot. When picketing, the lariat should allow the animal sufficient room to graze, but not enough to reach the wagons or entangle himself. Spare lariats should always be carried. Making caches. When it becomes necessary to leave supplies or baggage upon the road, a cache is made by digging a hole in the ground, depositing the articles, and covering them carefully so as to leave no trace. The best place for a cache is in a dry, sandy soil where there is no water. The hole should be dug in the shape of a bottle with a narrow neck. The earth is removed carefully and spread upon a cloth or blanket. The articles are placed in the cache, covered with earth, and the surface restored to its original appearance. A fire may be built over the spot or other means used to conceal it. Caches are often made in the banks of streams or under rocks. With proper care, articles left in caches will remain secure for a long time. Disposition of firearms. Firearms should always be kept in good order and ready for instant use. When not in use, they should be placed where they will be protected from the weather and from accident. In camp, they may be stacked or leaned against the wagons with the muzzles up. At night, they should be placed within easy reach. Never leave a loaded gun where it can fall or be discharged accidentally. When traveling, the arms should be carried in the wagons or on the persons of the men so as to be always accessible. Colt's revolvers. Colt's revolvers are the best arms for prairie service. They are reliable, durable, and of sufficient caliber for killing large game or for defense against Indians. Each man should have a revolver and be practiced in its use. The revolver should be kept clean and oiled, and the cylinders loaded with care. Spare cylinders and ammunition should be carried. The revolver is particularly useful in close encounters and when mounted. Gun accidents. Gun accidents are a frequent cause of injury and death upon the plains. They generally result from carelessness in handling loaded weapons. Never point a gun at a person, even if supposed to be unloaded. Never draw a gun from a wagon or scabbard with the muzzle toward yourself or others. Always examine the gun before loading or cleaning. These simple precautions will prevent many sad accidents. Trailing. Trailing, or following the tracks of men or animals, is an important art for prairie travelers. Indians and experienced frontiersmen can follow a trail that is almost imperceptible to others. The direction of the trail, the age of the tracks, and the number of persons or animals can be determined with great accuracy. The traveler should practice trailing whenever opportunity offers, as it may be of great service in recovering lost animals or in discovering the presence of Indians. Indian sagacity. The sagacity of the Indians in all matters relating to the plains is remarkable. They can read the signs of the country with wonderful precision. They know the habits of animals, the changes of weather, and the character of the country. Their powers of endurance and their skill in hunting and war are unsurpassed. The traveler will do well to observe their methods and profit by their example in many things. A friendly Indian guide is often of great value to an expedition. The Prairie Traveler, a handbook for overland expeditions. Chapter 6. Guides and hunters. It is highly important that parties making expeditions through an unexplored country should secure the services of the best guides and hunters. None are superior to the Delawares and Shawnee Indians. They have accompanied the author on several occasions and proved intelligent, brave, reliable, and fully qualified. They possess keen powers in woodcraft acquired by instinct, practice, and necessity, powers matched only by the Kabirs who guide caravans across the Sahara Desert. These Kabirs demonstrate remarkable skill in navigation using stars, experience with roads, wells, pastures, dangers, and remedies for diseases or venom. Even blind or one-eyed guides can determine location by examining grass and sand with their fingers, smelling and tasting. Delawares and Shawnees combine these natural abilities with reliability in frontier service. Delawares and Shawnees. The Delawares are a remnant of the great Algonquin family, once peaceful and unwarlike, but later becoming formidable warriors after moving west. Their warpaths have reached from Hudson's Bay to the Pacific and deep into Mexico. They are not clannish and wander widely as traders, trappers, and hunters among many tribes, even living with Mormons in Utah. The Shawnees have long associated with them, intermarrying and living as one people. Their homes are near Fort Leavenworth and in the Choctaw Territory. Many speak English and know white customs, yet retain native characteristics. They make excellent guides and hunters for prairie expeditions. Kebers. The Keber guides of the Sahara embody the ideal qualities needed for prairie service. They are intelligent, of tried probity, bravery, and skill. They navigate by stars, know routes, dangers, and resources, and can determine location even when blind by feeling grass and sand. A good Kabir is affable in camp but serious and focused on the march. Delawares and Shawnees share these traits, making them invaluable for expeditions through unknown territory where ordinary men would become lost. Black Beaver. Black Beaver, a Delaware guide employed for 10 years by the American Fur Company, had traveled extensively across the continent, from the Missouri and Columbia headwaters to the Colorado, Gila, and California coast. He served the author as guide for 2 seasons and proved perfectly reliable, brave, and competent. Despite a reputation as a fearless warrior, he often humorously claimed to be a coward who would hide under a cannon in battle. His stories revealed both modesty and true courage. Anecdotes. One anecdote illustrates Black Beaver's character. During a Blackfeet attack on a trading post, he and others made a sortie. He stayed in the rear but taunted his retreating comrades into turning back, helping repel the enemy. The fort commander praised him as a brave man. In another incident, while guarding a cache, he encountered hostile Blackfeet who insulted him. He challenged a few to fight alone, then rode off when they refused. These stories show his wit, presence of mind, and understated bravery. Domestic troubles. Although Delawares generally maintain harmonious social relations, they are not free from minor domestic discords that occasionally disturb family life, similar to those among civilized people. These issues reflect that even experienced prairie guides and hunters share common human experiences, despite their remarkable skills in woodcraft and survival. Lodges. The lodges or tents used by the prairie Indians are generally made of buffalo skins, dressed and sewed together so as to form a large sheet. This covering is stretched over a framework of poles from 15 to 20 feet long, planted in the ground in a circle and drawn together at the top. The lodge is conical in shape, with an opening at the apex for the escape of smoke. The fire is built in the center, and the occupants sleep with their feet toward it. These lodges are warm and comfortable in winter, and when properly pitched afford good protection against storms. They are easily taken down and transported upon poles dragged by horses. The Indians show much skill and ingenuity in the construction and management of their lodges. A well-made lodge will accommodate 10 or 12 persons comfortably. The door is a small opening covered by a skin, and the interior is often neatly arranged with skins and robes. White travelers frequently adopt this form of shelter when they have the necessary skins and poles. Similarity of prairie tribes to the Arabs. There is a striking similarity between the prairie Indians and the Arabs of the desert in many of their habits and customs. Both are nomadic, living in tents and moving from place to place with their families and property. They are both expert horsemen, and their mode of warfare is very similar, making sudden attacks and rapid retreats. Their hospitality to strangers and their treachery in war are also points of resemblance. The prairie tribes, like the Arabs, are great observers of the country and possess wonderful sagacity in discovering trails and in following the movements of their enemies. Their endurance and powers of sustaining fatigue and hunger are remarkable. These similarities are so marked that the prairie Indian may well be called the Arab of America. Method of making war. The prairie Indians seldom make open attacks upon large parties, but prefer to surprise small parties or to stampede animals. They approach stealthily, and when discovered generally retreat rapidly. Their favorite mode of warfare is to lie in ambush along the line of march and suddenly attack when least expected. They are very expert in decoying small parties into ambuscades by displaying a few warriors and then retreating. When they attack a camp, they generally do so at daylight and endeavor to stampede the animals and create confusion. They are not inclined to make a persistent attack upon a strong party, but content themselves with picking off stragglers or stealing animals. Their mode of making war is well adapted to their peculiar habits and to the nature of the country. Tracking and pursuing Indians. The Indians are very expert in tracking and pursuing their enemies. They can follow a trail that is almost imperceptible to a white man. They notice the bent grass, broken twigs, and other slight indications, and can determine the direction, the number, and often the character of the party. When in pursuit, they travel rapidly and are very skillful in concealing their own trail. White travelers should be constantly on the alert to discover signs of Indians and should never neglect to examine suspicious tracks. A knowledge of the art of trailing is of great value upon the prairies. Method of attacking them. When it becomes necessary to attack Indians, the best method is to surprise them if possible. A sudden and vigorous charge will generally put them to flight. They are not fond of close combat and will seldom stand against a determined attack. When attacked in their villages, they fight desperately in defense of their women and children. The best plan is to strike them when unprepared, and to follow up the advantage with vigor. Small parties should never pursue large bodies of Indians too far, as they may be drawn into an ambuscade. A cool, determined defense is generally the safest course when attacked. Telegraphing by smokes. The Indians have a method of telegraphing by means of smokes which is very effective. By building small fires and smothering them with green grass or leaves, they produce columns of smoke that can be seen at a great distance. Different signals are made by the number and arrangement of the smokes. A single smoke indicates one thing, two another, and so on. These signals are well understood by the different tribes and convey intelligence rapidly across the country. Travelers should be on the watch for these smokes, as they often indicate the presence of Indians. The system is simple but very efficient for communicating information over long distances. The Prairie Traveler, a handbook for overland expeditions. Chapter 7. Hunting. Hunting serves as one of the best schools for perfecting men in the use of firearms and target practice. The frontier hunter learns early that a poorly aimed or unprepared shot means going without supper, driving him to steady aim and proper gun care through necessity and appetite. Successful hunters become reliable shots who charge weapons correctly and perform well in action. Encouraging field sports in garrisons or permanent camps builds healthy habits, knowledge of the country, endurance, and skills like bivouacking and trailing, valuable for border warfare. While garrison routine has its place, combining discipline with the self-reliance and mobility of hunters creates the most effective force against prairie enemies. Small groups of 3 or 4, led by an experienced woodsman, can hunt safely on the march, acting as scouts and flankers while avoiding the risks of solitary excursions. Expeditions may face shortages of provisions through delays, losses, or theft, making knowledge of game animals and hunting methods essential for survival. Its benefits to the soldier. Hunting inures soldiers to fatigue, teaches practical woodcraft, and fosters self-reliance while maintaining discipline. It counters the idleness of garrison life that can lead to detrimental habits. Short excursions build familiarity with terrain and improve marksmanship under real conditions. The combination of military order with hunter skills produces troops highly effective against Indians, who rely on mobility and individual prowess. Small hunting parties also serve reconnaissance roles, detecting threats while provisioning the group. Overall, these activities enhance physical condition, morale, and combat readiness far beyond traditional drills alone. Buffalo. The buffalo, the largest and most useful animal on the prairies, once roamed in countless numbers, but now occupies a narrower range. It supplies food, clothing, and shelter to native peoples. 2 main hunting methods exist: running on horseback and still hunting. For running, use a sure-footed fleet horse. Approach from the leeward side, ride close, and shoot a cow, better meat, behind the shoulder with a pistol on the left or rifle on the right. Still hunting conserves horses and works well in broken terrain. Approach cautiously against the wind, using cover or crawling when necessary. Buffalo have keen smell and endurance. Wounded animals should often be left until they lie down. Choice parts include tongues, humps, and marrow bones. Proper technique yields meat efficiently without exhausting mounts. Deer. The common red deer ranges widely across the continent. Additional varieties in the Rockies include the black-tailed deer, larger, darker, mountain-dwelling, and long-tailed species. Deer rely on keen senses and camouflage. Successful stalking requires spotting them first, moving quietly against the wind, and using cover. They feed in early morning and evening, resting midday. Still hunting with patience and knowledge of habits proves most effective. Deer provide excellent meat and are widely available where grass and cover exist, making them a reliable supplement when other game is scarce. Antelope. Antelope are fleet and wary, with excellent eyesight. They frequent open plains and can be approached by exploiting their curiosity. Hunters sometimes lie down and wave a cloth or handkerchief on a stick, drawing them closer. They run in circles when alarmed and are difficult to approach directly. A steady, concealed shot from a good rifle is required. Their meat is tender and palatable, though less abundant than deer or buffalo in many areas. Patience and knowledge of their habits reward the hunter. Bear. Bears, particularly grizzlies in the mountains, are powerful and dangerous when wounded or cornered. They frequent wooded areas and streams. Approach with caution, using cover. A well-placed shot to vital areas is essential, as bears can absorb significant damage before falling. Smaller black bears appear in timbered regions. Bear meat, especially fat, provides rich sustenance, but hunters must respect the animal's strength and unpredictability. Proper preparation and respect for terrain reduce risks. Bighorn, or mountain sheep. The bighorn inhabits the most inaccessible rocky peaks and cliffs of the mountains, resembling the chamois of Switzerland in habits. They are gregarious but usually found in small groups of 8 to 10. Hunters must traverse broken terrain with great caution, as the slightest noise causes them to vanish. They graze on high slopes and rest among rocks. Still hunting with slow, silent movement and good marksmanship yields success. Their meat is excellent, and they provide a challenging but rewarding hunt in alpine regions.